It's worth noting that we're actually in Sardi's, you know, the legendary Sardi's. But what I really know that everybody wants to know is what the three of us have in common. Because if I look up on the wall there, why, my heavens, just to the right of the sconce, Gab, it's you, and Ashley, and then like an angel with pierced lips, I am above both of you. Actually, I got nervous, and I made a spelling error when I signed it.
Twan with a silent X.
They asked me a question. I was gonna, because I said, you know, no one's gonna know who I am. So I was gonna write, holy cow, who is that guy? And I wrote H-O-L, and they go, Tom, picture, and I smile. L-Y, and I realized I'd written holly cow, which is kind of like a Christmas greeting.
What's Christmas?
Which is
Well, the first time I was ever exposed to Peel Travers was via the film. I just left school, just over 40 years ago, and this wonderful film, Mary Poppins, opened, and I went, wow, it's fantastic, and then noticed that it was based on Peel Travers' book, so I got a few of them out. And about nearly 30 years ago now, I first wrote my letter, as everybody else did in the theatre, to try and see if I could get the stage right.
Well, this is George Stiles, who is the composer.
And this is Anthony Drew, who's the lyricist.
And we're currently working at my house in the southwest of France, which you tend to go to these days to escape from the pressures of communication, so you can just get away and do some writing. And it's about 200 years old. It's a restored farmhouse in the middle of a national park, so we're totally undisturbed. I won't allow a television in the house.
We ran into each other over a photocopier, both photocopying music for two university student productions that we were in the theatre at the time.
We were both at Exeter University. We started there in 1980. I was studying zoology, and George was studying music.
And just immediately got on like a house on fire. And within a week, really, I think we planned to maybe write our own show.
Hello, I'm Bob Crowley, set and costume designer for Mary Poppins, the stage show. Actually, I got a phone call about nearly 15 years now, actually, bizarrely enough, from Cameron, saying that he wanted to do Mary Poppins on stage. And my reaction was one of delight, sheer delight, because actually I'd kind of grown up with the film and vividly remember seeing it for the first time. And going back and seeing it actually 3 times in the same week, I remember. I loved it so much. So, but also a sense of huge responsibility, because it's such a well-loved piece, you know, and it's part of people's lives. You know, it's woven into the fabric of people's lives and imagination, this show.
Actually, Bob and I were trying to create a wonderful, wonderful movie, a wonderful, magical Disney movie. And we were through with it. I remember we were being interviewed one day, and Dick Van Dyke and Julie Andrews were there, and we were talking about the film. And at the end of this interview, Dick Van Dyke, this is 45 years ago, said, you know, one day this is going to make a great stage musical. And we all said, oh, no, that's impossible. They could never do it. No, you could never do the things that we did in the film. Well, they didn't do the things we did in the film. They did new things. They did wonderful things that were right for the stage.
People are going to always wonder what your first impression was when you saw the movie. I mean, you saw the movie as a kid, presumably.
I didn't.
You didn't?
I didn't see the movie as a kid. I somehow missed seeing the movie growing up, and it wasn't until I'd got the part that my wife Emily said, "Okay, let's sit down and watch it," and we got the DVD, and I watched the film and was amazed at how great Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke are. It was, they're very big shoes to fill, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
It is a glorious
it's
performance.
brilliant.
And you had seen the movie.
Oh yeah, millions of times. And I had my own dances to every number. And when I started getting my voice, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, you remind me of Julie Andrews," when I was in high school. So that's when I first started reading the books. And
had you ever thought that you could do it? It never even occurred to you.
No.
Presumably it's a movie, it's fixed in time.
yeah, it wasn't even. No, I think every little girl thinks they want to, be Mary Poppins, but nobody actually feels it's actually going to happen. So until it actually happened, I still don't feel like it's really hit me.
George and I were sort of rivals on campus. I was doing new musicals, George was doing Gilbert and Sullivan operettas, so we both had a love for musical theatre.
I think we started writing terribly, but there were a few things where we just found a little bit that was us and wasn't really like anybody else's. And we also quickly found after that we quite liked making people laugh with our songs.
And around this time, which was the beginning of '85, the Performing Rights Society had launched a competition called the Vivian Ellis Prize to honour their president, Vivian Ellis, who was a great songwriter in his time as well. And miraculously, we won it. And the judges were Cameron Mackintosh, Tim Rice, Don Black, Alan J. Lerner was sitting behind us in the audience, Sandra Lloyd Webber. It was extraordinary, for two young guys to have their work exposed to these sort of people. And literally, when they announced that we had won it, we did a lineup with all the judges, and George happened to be standing next to Cameron, who we'd never met before. And Cameron leant across to George and said, "What are you going to do with the show now?" And George said, "Well, what are you going to do with it?" Because he's very forward like that, as you probably noticed. And that started, a 20-year friendship with Cameron, and he has nurtured us and supported us for all of that time.
When you say theater in America, particularly musical theater in America, it's hard not to try to deal with the phenomenon that is Cameron Mackintosh.
Yeah.
I mean, producing Cats and Phantom of the Opera and Les Mis and Miss Saigon and, all these things that he's done. Did he intimidate you?
I've been performing in London and around England since like 1990, many years, and somehow I've not ever done a Cameron Mackintosh show. I've always done other producers' shows, and so that made it even worse that he is this massive...
And apparently he'd refused to cast you before.
Yeah, it's like, I hate him. You forced him to take me on. So, yeah, of course it was a big deal that Cameron Mackintosh is in the room, and...
And did you even know who he was when you first met him?
Yeah.
You knew?
I knew who he was, because, in school we studied him.
It wasn't until I met Pamela in 1993, and she vetted me very, very carefully. I thought I was going to interview her, but she actually interviewed me. And I started asking her some questions about why she wouldn't let it go onto the stage and what she thought that she wanted in the show that was not in the film. And I got some very oblique answers, but she obviously talked to me enough that she decided that I'd be the one that she'd entrust the stage rights with.
It took maybe 10, 11 years for it to come to fruition, because I think Cameron had the stage rights, but Disney obviously had the music rights. So Disney and Cameron had to come together to make this happen.
I could never have done the show without Disney, nor would I have wanted to. It is the greatest literary Mexican standoff of all time. P.L. Travers sort of muddily worded her contract with me and muddily worded the contract with Disney. So the two things had to come together because no one could do anything on their own. I suspect she contrived this all her time. She's still the producer of Mary Poppins.
And then it was when Tom Schumacher became president of Disney Theatrical, he decided on his own dollar, I think, to come over and sit down with Cameron and say, "Look, we both want this to work. We can't do it without you. You can't do it without us."
Tom Schumacher wasn't interested in the deal or whatever, if they could make a deal. He just wanted to know about the show. And once he and I had clicked, it moved very fast because he was able to go back to Michael Eisner and say, "Look, this is something we should pursue." And he realized that my idea for the show was very, very similar to what he thought the show could be.
The whole way it worked with the Sherman Brothers, I think they had already been told, because I think it was almost a stipulation of Pamela Travers, that in the event of Mary Poppins becoming a stage show, it would be British writers. She was somewhat dismissive of the songs in the film, and one of Cameron's great masterstrokes when he befriended her towards the end of her life was to convince her that in the event of Mary Poppins becoming a stage show, it had to have those iconic songs in it. But the Sherman Brothers knew from that moment that they weren't going to be involved in the actual putting together of the stage show.
Well, I was excited. I think it's marvelous. I knew nothing of the back work that was being done, such as no Americans should touch her precious thing again, and all that. It was a very, very touchy situation. But as I said to Mrs. Travers a long time before, because she was so worried about the fact that we were doing what we were doing for the film, I said, Mrs. Travers, nobody's going to ever touch your books. Your books will always be there. As you wrote them, the way you conceived them, nobody's changing that. We're just being inspired by your books to do a new medium. We're doing a film. And I said to myself the same thing. They're doing a new medium. They're doing a stage show. They're not going to change my film. They're not distorting it. They're not taking anything out. It'll always be there. I'm very, very proud of Mary Poppins, the way the film was, and my brother is, and we both feel very much that it's one of the crowning achievements in our lives. But they're taking our work and going further with it in a new direction. And wouldn't I be an old fuddy-duddy to complain about that?
First heard that there might be a musical of Mary Poppins maybe 15 years ago, and that somehow the rights had been secured for a stage adaptation that wanted to include the best of the Disney songs and the essence of the movie, but also wanted to make it a work absolutely for the stage, not just to put the film on stage, but to make a new piece.
I'm practically perfect from head to toe.
In every way.
In every way.
Let's start that one.
I know it better than you.
For God's sake. It's late now.
I never played Bird. I'm practically perfect in every way.
And we wrote a song because there's a moment when Mary Poppins first arrives and she holds the tape measure up to the two kids, and then they say, what about your measurement, Mary Poppins? And she puts it out and it says, Mary Poppins.
Practically perfect in every way.
And we thought, well, Practically Perfect is a perfect song title. It's alliterative. It describes Mary Poppins.
I'm so practically perfect in every way.
Let me try it once more and we'll get it right.
I'm practically perfect.
We looked at a lot of Sherman Brothers songs because we knew we were trying to make this song marry in with some of their songs. We looked at where the title falls, how alliterative the title is, where it falls within the chorus, and we tried to write a Sherman Brothers song using, those rules.
I'm practically perfect from head to toe.
He's produced it and sent this with a sort of synthesizer orchestrated version and dumped it on Cameron's desk without him knowing anything about the fact that we'd even
no one had asked us to do this. We just knew that our names were in the mix, and we thought, if we go and write as Sherman-esque a song as we can, and deliver it to Cameron, because by now we knew Cameron was going to be involved, it might get us the job. And Cameron loved it.
I'm clean and honest, my manner refined.
And I wear shoes of the sensible kind. And when you consider with all...
And it was so practically perfect, it hasn't changed one note as it is on the Amsterdam stage.
I'm practically perfect in every way.
I was brought in a later stage when I was hearing some of the material that was being developed and written for it. And I was actually very thrilled because I was worried that it wouldn't blend in with the material Bob and I had created. And I think I heard Practically Perfect, that one song. And when it was over, I very thrilled with it. And I said, that's one of the best songs we ever wrote, And they laughed because what I was saying was they had made a seamless joining of two creative talents. And what I loved about it was it had such a singable hook. They didn't just say practically perfect, they said practically perfect. That's a perfect precision in the way Mary Poppins would be. She'd be perfect. So they were thinking. And then they said, in every way, practically perfect. That's my forte. I mean, right away, it just absolutely made me feel great. I felt, geez, why didn't I do that one? Yeah.
Julian Fellows took the vague ideas that we had before and worked very much hand in glove with George and Anthony on creating a proper book musical. I mean, I based it on what's in the books. The fact is, the original film was based on 5 or 6 stories from one volume. There are 4 volumes and 2 extra books. So our show is a melange of stories from the entire canon of Pamela Travers.
There is a slightly more sinister edge to some of the moralising that happens in the Pamela Travers books. And we knew that that was one of the elements that Pamela Travers wanted this project to infuse itself with. So with Julian Fellows, who wrote the book, we did go back to all of those stories.
She wanted to get what she felt was the quirky, tough nature of Mary Poppins into this. I mean, she's a firm rock in a very unsteady world. If you pretend to children that everything is sweet and lovely, then they don't learn. And I think that in itself was the reason that Pamela Travers was never completely satisfied with the movie.
Cameron gave me a set of the books to read, and I had never seen them before. I'd never read them growing up or anything like that. And I was very seduced by the drawings in them, these beautiful little black and white drawings by Mary Shepherd. And I thought they had a really lovely period charm about them. And it was from those drawings, really, that I got the idea, why not just draw the entire show? And so the theatre is all about trying to make the audience do some of the work for you as well, you know, capturing their imagination and using their sense of childhood, really, you know.
I'd always felt this was the show for Richard Eyre. So after 2 or 3 years of finally persuading Richard to read the books, he rang me up one day and said, "They're rather good. Can we have dinner?" And I was thrilled to get him.
So, Sir Richard Eyre. Now, here's a guy who doesn't normally direct musicals.
Nope.
And in fact, in his book, you know, this famous television series for the BBC that was shown in America, and then a big book was written on it where he talks about American theater. And about Beauty and the Beast, he says, George Bernard Shaw said that hell would probably be something like an endless vacation. Apparently, George Bernard Shaw had never seen Disney's Beauty and the Beast.
And you employed him? You employed him?
It's the first time I meet Richard. I said, so in your book, when you trashed Beauty and the Beast...
So he's probably pretty impressed that I was playing Belle at the time. He's probably in a little
well, that really
by
won him over,
I'm
really.
sure.
Did he intimidate you at all? Because I have all these photographs of you, like, hugging and kissing him all the time.
It makes it sound like we had an affair or something. No, of course he intimidated me, but I guess it comes once you start working with people and realizing that they're just people and we all had the same goal, was to make this show the best it could be.
First of all, we had this incredible Julie Andrews, this wonderful, special lady who gave Mary Poppins birth on screen. So to find someone of that caliber, we were very, very, very fortunate to get Ashley Brown, because Ashley Brown has that magical quality. She's wonderful. It all starts with heart. She has a great heart.
I knew you were going to be in Mary Poppins the first time you auditioned. So,
oh my God! I wish you would have told me. I wouldn't have stressed so much.
Then was that weird moment when we brought you into audition. I thought, here's this girl from Pensacola, Florida, and she's going to meet Cameron McIntosh and Richard Eyre, who are just going to go.
I was like, hey, y'all, how are you?
What was fascinating to me is, I frankly thought Ash will go in the show, and there'll always be a really reliable cover. That's what I thought. And you came in, and they both got so excited.
The more we saw her, the more she became Mary Poppins.
And then I remember April 20th was the day I found out when you came in my dressing room and told me.
Now, one thing I remember telling you, though, is I came upstairs, I thought, I'm going to come in, and I said, don't tell anybody. Okay, don't tell anybody.
I got told that as well.
Yeah.
Then the day I got told.
So you know what happens? I go in, I tell you, and there was some level of squealing, right? Were you screaming, right? Okay. So then I walk out of the dressing room tower at the Lund, and there's a lot of hollering, and all the dressing room doors open. So I was on the way out, apparently, people figured it out. Now, that's at the Lund on 46th Street. I walk to a restaurant, 2 blocks away on 46th Street, where I see your agent, who not only says, it's going to be great with Gav, he says, and what about Ashley, huh?
And you're like, what?
I walked 2 blocks, and the
Well, she
entire
hadn't called
town
me, because
knew.
I didn't know you.
didn't know you yet. I only called my mom.
You put me through 4 or 5 auditions, which is usual, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
how many did you have? to
Like
get the role?
8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so my final audition was at a theatre in London, and I knew there was just me and another guy left who had actually beaten me to another role a few years earlier, and I'd end up being his understudy, which was fine by me at that time, but I was like, no, I've got to win this one. He went in for his audition, and he came out within about a quarter of an hour, and then I went down to the stage, and you just kept making me do everything again and again, but it wasn't in a, could you do it a bit more like this? It was like, oh, just do it again.
And we brought him back second or third time, and it was obvious that God had allowed Bert to step into our room, and we didn't know where to find him.
And then Cameron McIntosh came up on stage,
Yeah.
and he shook my hand, he went, well, congratulations, you're going to be Bert. And I just went,
Oh my God.
and I ended up hugging and kissing everyone, even like the cleaner at the back of the auditorium who was just like,
You know, by the way,
hoovering.
it's the worst thing in the world to do what he did to you and what I did to Ash is because the deal hasn't been done yet.
Yeah.
No, it's a very bad
But
thing
you
for a
kind
producer
of
to
know
do.
we're
It's
not,
kind of nice,
you know, you
though.
could offer us the worst deal in the world, we're still going to go, yes, please.
How fortunate we are to have Gavin Lee as Bert. I mean, Gavin Lee, first of all, created the role in London. He played it successfully for 2 years, and then he came to America, and he's been playing it for 2 years, and he's going to be going on the road with it. And God bless him, he's wonderful. He's a great guy, and he's a legitimate limey. He really is an actor, an English actor, and he was wonderful.
You did the first rehearsal in London,
London, and
then
then-
we came to America, all new company.
Yeah.
Except for you. We brought
I mean,
you over.
I felt a lot less nervous, but this time there was the added thing of I've never worked in America before. I don't know anyone. At least with the London cast, I did know a few people. Here, I walked in and I knew the
Yeah.
creative team.
Yeah.
And I'd met you once. Ashley had come to London and to sort of get used to being English for a week, having tea at the Ritz and things like that.
There is now a legendary tale of you thinking...
Trying to have breakfast by myself.
But and you ordered black pudding, which, did you think it was going to be chocolate pudding?
I did, and I realized that pudding is there is not the same as pudding here. So I saw on the menu, an English breakfast, perfect. I just really want the English touch. So I'm like, okay, I'm looking, I was like, ma'am, do you guys have vanilla pudding? And she was like, do you know what,
Black pudding
black
is?
pudding is? And I was like, She goes, do you know that it's pig's blood? And I was like, what? Oh, I definitely don't want the vanilla version of that. So I was like, okay. I was like, you can just leave that off. I was mortified. My ears were hot, my hands were sweating. It was horrible. It's like, see what I get? Leave me alone for 10 minutes.
So, flash forward, it's time to go for the first rehearsal here. How was that for you?
I was extremely nervous because here I am with the majority of the cast being older and definitely more experienced than me. So I was extremely nervous, and I had to just tell myself that I deserved to be here, and, but I remember standing up when we all had to go around the room, like Gavin said, wigs, wardrobe, producers, directors, everybody's in the room, and I remember standing up, everybody's going around saying, hi, my name's Gavin Lee, and I'm playing Bert, and so I got up, I was like maybe the 50th person to get up, so it wasn't a big deal. I was like, hi, I'm Ashley, and I'm Mary Poppins! Like, it was like one of those moments, like, it just hit me that I had never said it out loud, I don't think.
You are the title of show.
Yeah, yeah.
The house itself was a really difficult thing to design early on because it had to do so many things. It is one of the biggest characters in the story, in a way, the house. It was very important for you to believe in that house and that family lived in it. So the house was the first biggest thing I designed. And of course, the problem with that was that the script, even though it was written for the stage, it still had its kind of foot half in the film and half in the theatre because it was written almost filmically. So you get a stage direction which said Mary and the children run up to the nursery, then they sing Practically Perfect in the nursery, and then they step out of the nursery and now you're in the park, These are all like film cuts, So the whole thing of trying to work out the physics, basically, which I was hopeless at school. Physics and geometry were not my favorite subjects. It came down to that in the end. It was like physics and geometry.
There was one song, in Being Mrs. Banks, the song Winifred Banks sings. For some inexplicable reason, the orchestra did this huge swell right towards the end of the ballad. The reason was that the wheels on the house squeaks. So we had to disguise the fact that the house is trundling down stage and it's making too much noise.
And now we're going to tour backstage and have a look at some of the props that you see in the course of the show. This is Queen Victoria's throne as part of the fantasy sequence in Jolly Holiday, when we go from the grey, dreary park to Mary magics the whole world into kind of Technicolor. And then there's the famous carpet bag, Mary Poppins' famous carpet bag. There are various versions of the bag because there are various things have to come out of the bag. But this is such an icon of the piece. It's very heavy. Umbrella with the famous parrot's head on it, which is another famous Mary Poppins icon. And for the step in time, we have all the sweeps brushes here.
Here you are in this glorious, glorious, huge production. And the Broadway production, the West End production, and the tour are big pieces of scenery, and there's a lot of stuff up there.
It's dangerous. There's more choreography in the wings. When you watch Step in Time, I mean, the choreography is manic on stage, but you'll see all the chimneys going on and off. So, of course, whenever they get into the wings, there's not a lot of room in the wings. And so if you run off with a chimney brush and 4 other chimney sweeps, you have to take a certain route, otherwise you'll just get run over by a chimney. And Jolly Holiday's like that as well. Many of the scenes are like manic.
We had to create a world which Bob Crowley, who's one of the most gifted designers in the world, had to make as wonderful and different as Tony Walton did originally for the film. And it was a hard act to follow, but Bob has managed it in a very different way.
I've met Tony Walton several times, and he had designed the film, obviously, and the costumes. And I didn't want to sort of rip him off in any way, but at the same time, he had created the Poppins look. I mean, costume is as much about how they physically look as their character. It has to express something about their character. This is Mary's famous little Edwardian nanny hat. Little touches of Mary all the time here, little touches of colour against all the black. And so hence she's got red cherries. She's got a red little bow tie. Underneath the black, you get these surprising colours and what we call Mary blue. So inside this kind of rather austere Edwardian exterior is this rather kind of fun Mary colours.
I always explain to people that doing a show is really an athletic event. Between the dancing, the costume changes, it's the fastest one in Jolly Holiday when you turn into color.
We're both in our regular Bert and Mary clothes, and then within 40 seconds we're on in full color costumes, and then about another 40 seconds and we're back.
Because we start the show, like I start the show in 3 pairs of tights because I have to wear my white tights with my pink outfit. And so basically they can just do that and I can step into my shoes. They're peeling your clothes off. Yeah, they're just peeling it off.
Isn't that awfully warm?
Oh, top of the
practically perfect. Remember, my feet kept falling asleep because my shoes are only broken in with 1 pair of tights.
You have all these different costumes on because there's no time to take one off and put one on.
So you just have it on already and you can just rip it off and then you're on and then you rip it off again.
Well, it became very obvious that there was a great deal of respect and admiration that all the creatives of the stage version had for the material that was created for the film.
The ambition we always had was for people to be both familiar and surprised with the show. And I think that's what we've achieved. I mean, I think if the audience noticed how many changes we made, we would have failed.
George and Ants were working with Cameron and with Tom Schumacher, and we were being told everything. It's a different thing. They were over in England, we were in America. It was not a collaboration in that regard. No, all I was kind of a cheerleader.
Hello? Hello?
Hey, Richard, it's George and Ants.
George and Ants, hi, how are you guys?
Is that a surprise?
Oh, yes, I'm thrilled. Not a surprise, it's a thrill.
So we thought we should call in, because you know the UK tour, which started off in Plymouth a couple of months ago,
Right.
has made its move to Birmingham.
Oh, great, great.
And we just wanted to let you know how well it's going. And just another couple of, take a deep breath before we tell him this, another couple of small changes.
Oh, yeah, it's changes.
I'd love to hear everything.
You know, a spoonful of sugar?
Yes.
We've gone metric.
Thank you very much. I needed that. You made my afternoon.
There were quite a lot of instances where we did go back to them, because I think whenever we changed something, we studied what it was that we were changing and why it worked as it was, and if we really had to change it. So with something like Feed the Birds, we knew that it was such an iconic song that it would be perilous to change a single syllable of it. And so you realise, I think after a while, we realise there are certain things you can play with and there are certain things that are sacred.
On Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. It's a very brief song in the movie, and in a different place.
Within Jolly Holiday.
Yeah, but we do a huge production number with it. And this is, I think, one of the best examples of what George Stiles and Anthony Drew did, because they took that song and not only just made it longer, but gave it a whole new storyline.
Now let me see. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
We've introduced the idea of this shop, this weird shop where conversations are sold, and the children say, well, you can't just make up a word. And they say, of course you can. Where do you think language came from in the first place? And it's about expressing yourself.
When trying to express oneself, it's frankly quite absurd.
So all of Supercalifragilistic, as it is in the show now, is about expressing yourself and the wonder of language.
Yeah, not judging people by the sound of their voice, but by what they've actually got to say.
You need to find a way to say precisely what you mean. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
And certain things were extended of necessity because a stage version is a different thing. It's a different beast. And for example, spelling out supercalifragilistic. We never thought, we were so daring just to come up with a word like that. But then they said, well, now let's spell it out.
How are you with a bit of SUPER from your end?
Oh, absolutely, if you do it in the key of C. Can you do it in C?
You want me to transpose into C?
No, I tell you what, you play, I'll sing.
I think we can manage that.
Cameron suddenly grabbed me when we were doing Supercalifragilistic, and he said, I've had an idea upstairs now. Pulled me out of the rehearsals, went upstairs to Cameron's piano on the floor above, and he said, we should spell it. He said, if they could do it in do a deer, we can do it. He said, as always, steal from the best.
There's a few more letters involved in
They were, and I went, oh my God, SUPERCALIFRAGILISTCOUS. How the hell can you spell that out?
SUPERCALIFRAGILISTCOUS.
You invent the word in front of the audience, and you invent a physical way of doing it, a sign language thing. Was that hard to learn?
Well, it just took forever.
Yeah.
You know, if you
Can
imagine,
you just do a little bit of it right now without
well, this is an S, a very obvious S, obviously, there. That's a U. That's a P. I can't do an E because I need to involve my knee. This is an R. And the way we learnt it on Broadway is they put all the letters up on the mirrors.
On the mirror, yeah, like right up there.
So you could just read the whole supercalifragilistic and just very slowly went S, U, P, and gradually went along.
Yeah, they were like, okay, here's an S. And then we'd be like 5, 6, 7, 8, S. They're like, here's the U, so it's S, U.
From the
5,
top.
6, 7, 8, you know, and they would teach us the hands, and
We
then
did
they
about
would
5
put
a
the
day.
feet.
It took us 6,
A
7
long
weeks
time,
to
yeah.
learn those letters.
Here we are.
even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Supercalifragilistic.
Did you finish?
I think we finished together. Pretty good.
It's slightly easier when you're in the same room, I have to say.
Talk about transcontinental work. Oh my God.
Step in Time took us a long time to find a place to put it which was organic to the storytelling as opposed to a thrill in the theatre. And it then came to us that actually all the sweeps were other Berts and other guardian angels all around the world, and they were all part of Mary's troops.
It was a theme that's in Pamela Travers, and it's a theme that we wanted to, again, to give it more of a story. There's a reason why Mary has taken the kids up on the roof. It's not just because it's a great excuse for a dance number.
Did you realize when you signed on to the show that you were going to have to do this extraordinary thing in the middle of Step in Time?
No, not at all. It's maybe a few weeks before rehearsals are going to start, and I get a call saying, could you come in for a harness fitting? So I'm like, yeah, of course, and I'm flicking through the script and there's nothing that says Bert flies, but I thought maybe I just hold Mary's hand at one point and we just go up and, you know, look at the skyline and come back down again. And then we're into rehearsals and they show me this girl who they've hired. She's an aerialist. I think she was with Cirque du Soleil or something like that. And she just starts walking up the side of the proscenium arch, and then she gets to the top and steps upside down, and then she just stands there while the machinery tracks her all the way across, and then she walks down the other side. And this is about 40 feet in the air. It's a big proscenium arch, just like at the New Amsterdam on Broadway as well. And my jaw has just hit the floor, and Cameron is standing next to me, and he goes, so do you think you can do that, dear? And I'm like, well, I want to do it, but whether I can do it, I mean, I've never been up that high upside down before in my life.
All right, fellas, I'm going for it. Over the rooftops. Whoa.
It's physically demanding because so much of it is your body weight that is doing the walking, and particularly when you then get to the top and you swing between the wires. If you go too much, you're going to bash your head. And I know Gavin Lee took to it like a duck to water. Subsequent Berts have seen what Gavin Lee has done and have had different problems with it. I've got vertigo, which is a huge problem. In fact, we did actually lose one person in New York. He stayed in the company, but he decided he didn't want to be the understudy anymore because he was terrified. He wasn't sleeping at night, worrying about the day when he had to do this thing around the proscenium arch.
You've done it so many times. You do it 8 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still have a little flutter about it when you go
I've done it over 1,500 times. I think I've done 1,500 performances.
Oh,
and now when I go off halfway through Step in Time, I don't even think about it, but I do remember in the beginning, I'd be, okay, it's coming up, okay, just relax, right? Don't look down, don't look down. And it was really nerve-wracking, and it's weird, you can get used to anything. And now, in my 4th year, I don't even think about it. And people at stage door say, what's it like? You know, every day I get asked,
How do you
keep your hat on upside down? And after sort of 2,000 times, do you want to go, how do you think? Clips.
No, but you have to fly, and you knew that. But
Yes.
when you fly here in New York, you get very close to the audience.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe somebody hasn't tried to touch me, knock on wood. Because there's a time where I go by the first balcony, and, I mean, I'm literally, my feet are as close to your head as we are right now. But it's so funny because you always see the women and children, they're like, oh my gosh, this is so magical. And the guys are like, how does this work? You know, trying to check it out. It never fails, every time.
First time I saw Mary Poppins, the play, was in Bristol, England. And it was a packed house. It was previews before they were actually going to open it for the run. And at the middle of the show, when Mary Poppins leaves, I was crying. I was weeping, but they were happy tears. I mean, I was absolutely just devastated. And I remember seeing all the creatives in the back wondering, what's Sherman going to think? And I came out and they saw it and they all started cheering. He said, great, he's crying, good, good, good.
Then you have in the room, you have Richard Sherman. It's like you're having a kid in the room.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
When they come in their super cow shirts and whenever they're in town and they come running to the front during the bows.
During the
just like,
bows, you always know when Richard and Elizabeth Sherman are in because she runs down to the front of the orchestra pit and she's waving at us, and it's fantastic. Julie Andrews came to one of the performances in London, and it was a big gala night because she was coming and she watched the show, and we were, of course, all so nervous. And then at the end of the show, after we bowed, we presented Julie Andrews. She came on, she did a speech, and she was so lovely because she kind of said this has been her role. She has been Mary Poppins since 1964. And now she felt she was handing the role over to the new Marys and this cast, and she said, all I can say, it was absolutely, now what was it? S-U, and she learned S-U-P-E-R, califragilistic. She didn't learn it all, that would have taken her weeks, but of course she got a roar from the crowd that she'd just done a few of those letters.
Anything can happen if you let it. Sometimes things are difficult, but you can bet it doesn't have to be so. Changes can be made. You can move a mountain if you use a larger spade.
I think going to Broadway was our first dream come true. We've ever since we first started writing, Broadway has been a dream. And so to have the show playing on Broadway and to be such a big hit and to be in, I think, the most beautiful theatre in the whole of New York, the New Amsterdam, is such a treat. And then the idea that we're going to go on tour, particularly starting in Chicago.
Do you know when you're going to see the touring version?
I hope to see it in Chicago. That's what I'm told. So that
it's
should
just going gangbusters in the UK.
Oh, great, great.
And believe it or not, Jolly Holiday, there's been another little change.
Yes.
We do the kind of rag section. I'm even going to try and play the piano to you, Richard, now, so please don't scream.
No, I'd love to hear it.
I think the touring version of the show is the best version of the show yet, and that's absolutely from the heart. You still get all the big effects. Nothing has been cut that you don't get on Broadway and the West End. You've got every single big ticket thing is going to be there.
Let's go for a jaunty saunter. You are bound to make your mark.
I think it looks absolutely sensational. How Bob Crowley has reimagined it is just sensational. The house dances in front of your eyes.
This is a new version of the house. This is not what we do on Broadway. This was all a painted piece before. You saw the house as a drop in front of the stage. And what I've done here is taken the painted backdrop and put it on the front and sides of the house. So the house is a three-dimensional piece here. You just see the opening up now like the doll's house opens up, and inside it's all drawn and painted to look like the interior of a doll's house. And the inside is a painted reproduction of the dimensional house that's in New York right now. So all the details on the set are all painted as if they were in a children's storybook. We're now going to see the new transition from the main hallway and upper story of the house to the kitchen. And then the kitchen pops out like another little pop-up book at the back of it. And so you go from this black and white world of sort of foggy London into the kind of warm, lovely kind of colours of the inside of the house. So in fact, it's kind of come back to its sort of roots. And it's been made simpler because it has to be. But in a funny kind of way, it's more charming and more light on its feet, which I love.
We're sort of so excited about the tour, it's ridiculous.
And unusually,
it's the best version yet.
Our two leads, Mary Poppins and Bert from Broadway, are going out on the US tour, which is unusual these days. It used to be the way, but it hasn't been in recent years.
I was going to ask about your daily routine, because people don't understand what it's like to do 8 a week. Do you warm up?
I definitely have to do vocal warm-ups, and
I have to listen to her because my dressing room's next door. I'm like, here she goes.
And I do it in my bathroom because it's acoustic.
And then her dog's normally in the dressing room, and the dog joins in.
Well, I was going to ask you about this because I hear Eddie warming up with you. Is this because Eddie's got some compulsion about that?
I guess because I didn't teach him to do it.
Eddie, come on, Eddie.
Come here, Punky.
Here we go.
Come here,
That's
buddy.
a good boy.
Good boy. That's a good buddy.
Okay.
He's on camera.
Eddie. Dove signorina, by the time the wind is blown, the weather vane around, I'll show you if I can. Goodbye.
Eddie's a pro. Well, thanks for hanging out at Gloria's Sardi's.
Thank you. Very cool. Say bye, Eddie.
I'm out, everybody. He's a good singer.
Oh, but you know, it's always fun to talk to you, and it just doesn't happen often enough. Now, we have a bit of a scheme. We're trying to come to LA to see you when we launch the show for its engagement in Los Angeles.
Once again, we'll sit and have the Battle of the Pianos. It'll be fun.
Bless you. So I hope we'll see you towards the end of October in LA.
I'm looking forward to it, guys. Really, I am.
Will you give Elizabeth our love?
I sure shall.
And if you need to change anything we wrote, talk to our agent.
That's all right. I claim credit for all of it.
We love you.
I love you too. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye. Bye-bye, guys.
With every job, when it's complete, there is a sense of bittersweet. That moment when you know the task is done.
Mary Poppins points out the very wonderful thought that you should always make time for your children. And that's what makes a happy family. And that's what the parents discover, that actually they don't need excuses, they don't need stuff. What they need to do is actually invest time and share and bring up their own children. And I think that's a very, very good thing to be said in this day and age. And alongside that, I think the audiences do go out, hopefully whistling or singing the other moral that Mary teaches us, that anything can happen if you let it.